the feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I would like to point out, it could be also called Blessed Optional Sunday. We have 2 optional readings for the first reading. I recommend the first of that options. And the psalm response has 2 or 3 different responses. The second reading has 3, and I recommend the reading from the first epistle of John. It's beautiful. And there's even options about the Alleluia. But there is no option about the gospel. And except this, you can question the liturgical people who make these. We're going from Wednesday, where Jesus is born, to today, when Jesus is 12 years old. And then next Sunday, we're going to be back with the Magi coming to visit Jesus as an infant. And then the next Sunday, and it's called the Epiphany, the manifestation, and the next Sunday is the baptism of Jesus. So you have to let go a little bit. So I hope this finds you blessed by Christmas celebration, quiet, family, reconciliation. And today is the feast of the Holy Family. And one of the responses to the psalm is, "Blessed are those who dwell in the house of the Lord." That's beautiful. There are many, many books, if you go to a bookstore, about how to have a functional family or a happy dysfunctional family or blah, 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 all kinds of ways to do it. And maybe during this week of Christmas, you have had family time. And sometimes family is not easy, as we see in today's gospel. Somebody once said, if you want to know how perfect you are, live alone. Now, I live in a Jesuit community, and I don't live alone, and I am very aware of the imperfections of my brothers. That's the fun part of community, to find out about them, those guys. And in family life, it's not perfect. You live imperfectly with the imperfections. But that's called fidelity. I think fidelity is, what do you do with disappointments? When married life, family life, grandfather life, grandmother life, uncle and aunt life, cousin life, it's not perfect. There are disappointments. And fidelity is the gracefulness, the waiting. What is God doing with the imperfections of my brothers and mine even? Last Sunday we talked about God making much of little. We can make much of our imperfections, and especially we can make much of the disappointments and the imperfections of others. Now the gospel. Jesus is 12 years old, and it is the custom, the tradition, once a year to go up to the temple, usually at Passover, to remember who you are. Now it's within that context that in the Hebrew tradition, the Jewish tradition, you go up to find God, to be in the presence of God. We believe that the transcendent, the beyond, the infinite has come down and dwelt among us and makes our house a holy dwelling. This house, our house. But they go up according to the Jewish tradition, and they do the traditional things and prayers and relationships. And Mary and Joseph leave with the families back to Nazareth, and they discover Jesus isn't with them, is not with them. And they return looking for him, and they're looking all over. This is a great disappointment. And they find him in the temple, talking as if he knew what he was talking about. And this is our son. He's only 12 years old. He's the son of a carpenter. He lives in a family. And he's talking and asking questions. And the wise people, the doctors of the law, they are amazed. Mary and Joseph are not so amazed. They're joyful that they found him. And they don't say, wait till we get you home. How can you do this to us? Their holiness is the fidelity with disappointment. And he goes down with them and is obedient to the law of being obedient to your mother and father. It's his first act of obedience is being born. The next is to live according to the Jewish traditions of family obedience. Well, what is the comfort for us? In the encounter in family, what is the challenge of disappointments? Why are they disappointments? Are they a disappointment to my high expectation, to my ego needs? It'd be good to pray with. Because the Holy Family dealt with disappointments and will for the rest of the life of Jesus. As he leaves home, as he goes among being rejected, he's not what Mary expected. So disappointments are confronting our expectations, because our expectations can become demands. It's got to be this way. My ego, my tradition says so. We join Mary in saying, I don't understand, but we trust. We are going to be faithful to our family. Let's go home. Jesus makes his home in us in the midst of our disappointments around us and our disappointments within us. The Eucharist makes his home in us. As he made his home in a stable, he makes his home in the poverty of our disappointed self. He is faithful. We are holy in his faithfulness.